Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and I'm pretty excited about this video because we have a brand new 3D printer to unbox. A very well-known one made by Creality, and it's called the Ender 3. So we're gonna be unboxing this thing and assembling it and doing our first print. So let's get started. Alright, so I'm pretty excited about this printer because I have heard so many good things about the Ender 3 and how it's a printer that does all. And it's kind of established itself as, you know, the best printer for the money. And so this Pro version just, you know, notches it up a bit with a few little upgrades. And I can't wait to put this thing together and try it out, and especially because this is a larger bed. I'm very excited about printing things that I would not be able to before. So let's crack this thing open. So I got this printer, guys, on Amazon. All right, let's see what we're greeted with here. So far, everything looks really good. So it looks like we have a little foam cover here, and it's black. That's very nicely packed. So it looks like here we have a manual to put this thing together. That's nice. So I can't help but check out this bed here. It's magnetic supposed to be. Let's see, wow. Check that out, guys. That's really, really cool. Oh, that's pretty strong. So I'm just gonna go ahead and quickly pull everything out. So we have the power cord. We have a little bag here of some kind of accessories and a little bit of filament. We have more baggies of tools and other parts of some sort. So this looks really nice over here. What is this? Okay, so this is the power supply. And this is, I think, one of the big difference between the Pro and the regular one is you get this more of a thinner, you know, supposedly more reliable. So here it looks like we have the display, and that's in a little bag. A bracket, some extruder channels. I'm gonna pull this bed off. I think this piece might be ready to come out. I'm not sure. Okay, yeah, it is. So we do have a spatula stuck in here, and it's the same one that the Ender 2 had. So here we can see the rest of the parts. More of the extrusion channels. So this looks like the extruder motor here and the X-axis motor. So here we have the hot end, and it's all together, it looks like. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this back where it goes. And this thing definitely wants to go kind of in a random place. Okay, so I can tell already that this bed is not adjusted correctly because it's wobbling, but that's okay. We're gonna be adjusting all that. All right, so the last piece looks like it all kind of just comes out here. It's kind of a big piece here. So this is the whole assembly. It's definitely a pretty large piece here. So here we have the Z-axis motor, the filament holder, and nicely tucked away over here, Z-rod or T-rod that will go into here. Pretty cool. All right, so that looks like everything. So we'll just get this box out of the way. All right, and these are all the pieces from the Ender 3. So because this is my second build, it's not as intimidating, and there actually seems to be a little bit less pieces on this than the Ender 2 that I assembled. So let's take a look at the instructions here. So they kind of just show you all the things that are included here, all the pieces, I guess, and then how to put them all together here step by step. So it doesn't look too awful, and there's 12 steps total. So hopefully we can go through this pretty quickly. So step 1 is to put on these longer channels. So and these both two are a little bit different. And I'm guessing it's probably these that are shrink wrapped here. Yep, these are definitely it. So before we continue, I want to show you this little tool pack they give you. So they give you some tools here, some cutters in there. That's what's inside that brown thing. Some zippy ties, Allen wrenches, and a little screwdriver. So it's kind of nice. It comes with some tools. And this other bag actually has a lot of little parts in there. So it looks like we have some kind of end caps, spool holder, nuts, a belt, and screws. Lots of different kind of screws. And we're gonna need all these screws. So, but before we can build anything, the first thing we need to do is we need to adjust this bed, because if we start building it, we won't be able to flip it over. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna flip this guy over. All right, so we got the printer upside down, and what we're gonna need is some tools. So we're gonna need a wrench and an Allen wrench. So the Allen wrench is for the bolt to loosen it and tighten it, and the wrench is to turn the little nut underneath. So one side has the eccentric nuts, as you can see. This is the side. The other side doesn't have anything. So what you're going to do is you're going to work off of this side. And right now you can see that we have a lot of wobble. So we're going to go ahead and start with this one here. So we're going to just loosen it up a bit. So we're going to turn it ever so slightly until it has like barely any pushing. right when it meets resistance, you want to stop. And we want to stop there and go to this one next, because you don't want to over tighten one of them. Same thing for this one. We're just going to go just a little bit until it meets resistance. So once it meets resistance, we're just going to stop right there. So we're going to check it. So that feels pretty good. So I'm going to back them off just a little bit and see if we have any kind of wobble. Seems still very solid. So it seems like to be just perfect if you barely tighten them, and right when you get some resistance, you back off just a little bit. So if you got no wobble, you got it right. Then you're going to tighten this Allen bolt here, but make sure that you hold your wrench when you're tightening this, because you don't want your eccentric nut to move any from being tightened, because it will move. So once you get those two nice and tight, you should not have any wobble whatsoever between this frame and the main frame here. And you can check that by going up and down and side to side. But don't make these too tight, because if you do, the wheels will shred. And you will see that over time that they will start shredding. So the next thing you want to do is you want to find a very, very level place, like a very level table. And what you're going to do is you're going to loosen all these bolts here on each side. And you're going to make sure your feet are sitting level. And then you're going to retighten these. And the reason you're going to want to do that is because you want your bottom to start off level. That way when you go up, you can level everything from the bottom. So, alright, so my Ender 3 was very level, so I didn't have to do anything. But I went ahead and tightened these bolts on the side because they were kind of loose. So you definitely want to make sure all your bolts are nice and tight, because even though they put them together, they don't tighten them sometimes all the way. Alright, so we got this channel and it has two holes right here. And this one actually goes on this side right here. So these are the bolts that you use for that, and they're called M545. So we're going to take our bolt and then go from the bottom. We're just going to start that. And same thing to the other one right next to it. So you're going to use the largest wrench that they give you, the Allen wrench. And then you just want to snug these up. You don't want to go too tight yet, because we still have to do the rest of the frame. So I'm just going to get them a little bit snug, and that should be good enough. So, and the channel does move side to side, so it's definitely going to move. It's definitely going to need to align, so don't tighten that yet. So same thing for this side. So for this side, these little holes here go to the bottom. Same thing here, we're just going to snug them up. Alright, so on to step number 2, which is the power supply and the control screen here. So let's go ahead and start with the power supply, because there's a very important thing that you need to do before you do anything. And that is to switch to your voltage. So it looks like they preset them always to the 220 voltage, which is most of Europe and Asia and all that stuff. So, but if you're in the United States, you obviously need to switch that to the 110 or 115 there that it says. So as simple as just switching it and you're good to go. So yeah guys, don't forget to do that before you do anything actually, because you don't want to mess up your power supply or your printer because of that. So these two holes here is what the supply mounts on, and it just goes just like that. And then we're going to put our bolts through here that'll hold this. So the bolts are called M420, and so we're going to just put them right through there. Then we're going to line up the supply and screw it in. And that's it, we are done here. I really love how they have this part here, because the Ender 2 doesn't have this, and it really needs it really bad. Alright, so the next part will be the display control unit thingamajigger. And that's what that looks like, pretty nice. Unfortunately, the circuit board here is open in the back, but there is a little print that you can do to cover this, which we'll do later. So this just goes right here, and there's two bolts. So the two bolts that go there are called M5/8. So as you can see guys, these line up pretty easily, and we can go ahead and snug these a little reasonably well. And that's the control panel there. Alright, for step 3, looks like we're going to be installing the Z-axis switch. So let's go ahead and find the switch and install that. So the Z-axis switch is in the bag with the filament. So it's made out of plastic, unfortunately. But that's okay, it's just holding the switch. So on the Z switch here, we have the T-nuts there. So what we're going to do, we're just going to loosen it. And what you're going to do is you're going to go inside the channel, and then you're going to turn them. And then you're going to tighten the bolt. And that's how this thing holds. So, and if you look right here, there's a little piece of plastic that protrudes past. That's actually what sits on the frame right here, telling it the location. So you're simply just gonna butt against that like that, and then just tighten it right here. So once you get the switch lined up nicely, you're just gonna tighten it, but don't over tighten it, because this is plastic and it's just a switch, so it doesn't need to be very tight. All right, so now we're at step 4, and that is the Z motor. So the Z motor already has the bracket on there, and it simply just goes right here, just like that. And the 2 bolts that go on there are M418-P. So the 2 bolts just go in there just like that, and then they just screw into the frame. So we can go ahead and make these pretty snug, and that's it. And I guess we can go ahead and put our rod in there. So make sure you set the red rod down all the way, and then we can tighten those 2 little Allen screws there. Well, actually you just want to screw one of them because the other one is already tight. All right, so that's pretty snug and everything looks okay. All right, so the next step is step 5, and it looks like we're going to be putting the little bowden tube feeder coupling in, and then putting this whole thing on a channel. It looks like a couple bolts go in that. So all right, so we have 2 more channels left, and the longer one that has like these more holes, little holes and stuff like that, that's the one we need for the x-axis. This one actually just goes on top. All right, so here we have the x-axis assembly and also the extruder up here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to thread this into here, and then we're going to tighten that up real good. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need to connect this channel to the assembly here. If you look at it, there's a back and a front. The back is actually with these little cutouts here. They're accommodating like a bolt. And so one of them has a bigger distance and the other one has a smaller distance. So you want the one with the smaller distance. Wobbled out area right here actually goes over that bolt right there. It just goes just like that. And then we're going to put 2 screws through here. And there's actually holes on the other side so you can, you know, put your wrench through. And these are the bolts you'll be using. They're called M416. So what I'm going to do to make it easy for myself is I'll go ahead and put them through the hole, and then I'll get my wrench ready and get ready to tighten them. Hold it all together and then just tighten the bolts. And essentially this is what you get. All right, so step 6 is putting the whole hot end on there and then putting this bracket in on the other side. So here we got some little cutters that Creality includes, and they're really nice. So there's a little zip tie here. We're gonna go ahead and cut this whole bundle over here loose so we can put it on this channel. So all we're gonna do is we're just gonna roll into there just like that. And I can feel right away that this is way too tight right here. So we're gonna have to adjust this, but we're gonna do that in a little bit. So the next piece is this bracket here, and it goes on the back side here. You see where that cutout is again? This bolt here goes in there just like that. And then there's 2 bolts, one in here and the other in here. And those are the M416s. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten these pretty well, and that should be good. So step 7 looks like we're gonna have to put the belt on there. And step 8 is the adjuster at the end there that tightens the belt. So we're gonna go ahead and do 7 and 8 together here. So here we have the belt in the baggie. So the belt is not too complicated. Here are the 2 ends of the belt where they're gonna hook. And then the belt just goes around. And if you can see inside that cover there, there's a sprocket gear. It goes around that gear and then goes on the top and goes, believe it or not, underneath these rollers in that channel there. And then it'll go to this end where our little bracket tensioner is, and around that, and then just back to this point. Not too difficult, just basically in a circle. So first I'm gonna go under these wheels. So now all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it under there, and then I'm just gonna roll them over. And then from there we're gonna go inside this box here. So this could get a little tricky. You might have to do a little fishing here and there, but it's not too bad. So you're just gonna go right around that sprocket. So once you get under the sprocket, you're ready to just hook right under here. Slots right in there just like that. And so the other end just goes around here and then slots in here just like that. So the adjuster is in the filament bag, and this is what it looks like. So you're going to be working with these little T-nuts here. So this goes in there pretty simply. You just put the T-nuts in there, and then the belt would just simply go over this. And now we can tighten it up and then tighten these bolts. So here all I'm going to do is I'm going to use another wrench, and I'm going to kind of pry on it just a little bit to make it tight, and then I'm just gonna tighten these up. So once you're happy with the way the belt is tight, it doesn't have to be super tight, it just got to be a little bit tight. If you make it too tight, you might wear the belt out and all the components, but you don't want it to be loose either. So we are done with step 7 and 8. So step 9 is putting that whole assembly we just built on top of these rails here. All right guys, so I accidentally messed up. I thought I was recording, but I didn't. So I went ahead and put this in this, but let me explain real quick what I did. Unfortunately, these things happen. But so what we did is we put this main piece here that we built on top through on these rails, and you want to make sure that these rails here are loose, like they're moving around. The bolts underneath are not tight. And so what you're going to do is you're going to put this piece on top, and you're going to turn this because there's a little bushing here with a little thread that goes into the T-rod here. So you're just going to put it into here, and then, you know, spin it where it grabs it and pulls it down. So that part is simple enough. But the important part is that these two main beams here, these channels, they're loose. So after we got this piece in there and sitting on the rod here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to install this other channel here. And so this channel just goes in here, and the part that's wallowed out on the top goes up, and then the bolts go through here, and the bolts are M5 25s. And then there's little plastic end caps right here on each side, and those just click in pretty easily. I can pull one out right now. That's what that looks like. So it just clicks right in there, and it kind of gives it a little nicer touch there. So when you tighten this channel, you don't want to tighten it tight. You just want to barely tighten it, you know, just get it started. And then after that, go to the bottom and tighten the main two screws on each side of this main channels here. And then when you get that tight, you can tighten these. And the reason you want to do that is because you want everything to kind of find its place. You don't want to force anything, because the more force you have, the more stiff everything's going to be, and, you know, wear things out and be misaligned and things like that. So basically step 9 and step 10 is what we skipped there. So the next part is step 11, and this is the spool holder. So this should be easy enough. So what we're going to need is the M5/8 bolts, and then we're going to need the M5 T-nuts, and then our metal bracket, the spool holder cylinder part, and here we have the spool holder nuts. So we're just going to put our bolts through there and then start our little T-nuts on the bolt. So, and then we're going to come in here and put this in the channel. So I'm going to go that way as much as I can. The reason why is because, you know, that's where the roll feeds into here. We want to try to get close as possible to the extruder. So the same thing here, just make sure your little T-nuts are aligned, and then you can tighten this. Sometimes these little T-nuts can be a little bit of a hassle because they don't want to turn inside the channel. You might have to grab something like a little screwdriver or just another piece and turn them inside the channel. Alright, so once that's nice and tight, then we can go ahead and put our little spool part on. And that'll go just like that. And then this little washer goes on this side. And that's it. Now we got ourselves a little spool holder up here. Alright guys, and that's pretty much all the structural parts. So the rest is just kind of connecting everything together. So one of the things you want to go ahead and connect is this little bowden tube part, the little tube that goes into the fitting here. And that's pretty simple. You just stick it in there and you push it in there, you know, pretty hard until it goes in, and then, you know, it should not come out anymore. Now these little fittings here are very unreliable, and you need to put something in between the little piece that comes out right here. So those are little upgrades that we'll have to do eventually. Alright guys, so the last step is step 12, and that is connecting all the electronic parts. And as you can see here, we got the extruder, the x-axis, the main power, then we have the z-axis to the motor there, and then we got to the screen, bowden tube, which we already connected, the x-axis switch, and then the z-axis switch. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and all the cables in the back are labeled here, so it shouldn't be too hard to figure out where everything goes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the screen connections here, so it's not that much. And as you can see, it's all labeled E, X, X again. So the smaller ones are for the switches, and the larger ones is for the motors. So this X bunch here goes to the top here, and all we got to do is just plug them in. So this says E, so that's for extruder, and just like that. And then this X, the larger one, is for the motor. And then our last one is for the switch. And it's a little bit hard to get to, but it's not that bad. And that's it. So if we just go down, we can see there is a Z switch wire here. So, and it was here already. And that just will go to this little switch here on the back side. Just like that. Alright, so we're at the back again. And so now we just need to plug this guy in. And this is the Z motor. And that's it. So all we're left with back here is the power connector between the power supply and the printer itself. So the Y-axis is already connected. It already comes pre-connected, the switch and the motor. So let's go ahead and plug this power cord in. And that's pretty much all the connecting. The last thing we got to do is connect the screen. So the screen has a ribbon cable that goes to it from under here. So we're going to probably have to cable manage this later on. So under here there's 3 connectors, but I think they're probably all the same, so it doesn't matter where you plug. So I'm just going to plug into the middle one, and that should be pretty good right there. So now that everything's together, it's pretty exciting to get it running, but we can't do that yet. What we need to do first is we need to make sure all these eccentric nut adjustments on all these wheels here are perfect, because I know that this is too tight already, because this has really force and it has like a jump in between. So everything's a little off, so we need to adjust all of our travels here. So this right here is way too tight. I mean, it's crazy tight. So it definitely got a lot better just by loosening just a little bit already. So I'm just gonna go till it barely bites, like barely bites, and then back off just a little. So yeah guys, now this thing is really nice and smooth. There's nothing too weird. It feels very smooth. So you want it to feel smooth. So spend extra time on getting all this right, because if you don't, you're gonna ruin your little wheels here pretty quick, and you know, then you're gonna have to replace them. So I'm gonna go ahead and check everything and adjust everything, and then we'll power this thing on and see if it turns on. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug this plug in right here. So all I gotta do now is hit the switch. Well, I didn't look at the instructions good enough. The screen needs to be connected to EXP3, so because the screen's not coming on. So the third one is the one that's closest to the printing bed. All right, let's try that again. There we go. And the screen lights up. So this is my first time having anything of this size of screen. That's super nice and large. I'm used to little tiny screens. So there's a little film here. We'll take that off. Well, that's pretty cool. All right, it does make sounds. Let's see. So it seems to be similar to the Ender 2 that I have. All right, let's go to out of home. So that's going to be the test. Make sure everything works. All right, so I'm going to hit out of home and let's see what happens. So it homed right over in that corner over there. So the steppers are locked. Everything seems to be nice and tidy. Alright guys, so one thing I do not see is the bed leveling in here. So I'm guessing it does not have it, which is kind of weird, to be honest. So we only have an out of home and just a bunch of other little functions here. So that's kind of weird. So I'm not used to not having a bed leveling. So far the 3 printers that I have the bed leveling. So I guess you just out of home this thing and then you go from there, I'm guessing. Of course, after it does out of home, we're gonna have to disable the stepper motors so we can move it around. I'm gonna use a postie noti and I'm gonna use that to level to the bed. So we're just gonna go to the 4 corners, about an inch away from each corner, and then we'll check the middle and hopefully everything will be fine. Now I don't think I have commented yet, but this thing has very huge knobs to adjust, which is really nice because you can really precisionally adjust it. Alright guys, so I think I got the bed leveled pretty good. I use this little sticky note here, and yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I can tell you right now that the middle does have a dip. It's not severe, but it definitely does. But in any case, I think that's close enough to tolerances where it'll be fine. So I haven't showed you guys yet, but there is a little SD card with a little adapter that's included. And that's what that looks like. It's kind of interesting, I guess. And the card that comes with it is a 8 gig. So what I'm going to use is an Ender 2 SD card, and I have quite a few files in there. So we'll just print our first print from there. And I'm going to be using this black filament here, just a regular PLA, nothing too fancy. It's actually a pretty cheap filament. All right, so we're just going to feed the extruder. So I'm not going to put anything on the bed. I'm just going to let it print the way it is. So let's see if we can find anything to print on that card. So I'm just going to see what we have in here. Print from SD card. Guess we're going to refresh it here. So these are all the things I printed on the Ender 2. So let's see if we can find something. There we go. Maybe this is good. Filament guide. Actually, that might be a really good print to print because I think the filament guide is the same on the Ender 3. Alright, so let's just go with the filament guide and see what happens. So I think it's probably okay. So it's going to heat up the bed to 60. Yep, that's what it's doing. It looks like the bed, yep, is definitely getting hot. So it looks like it's up to temperature and it's going to 215. So I guess I got that pretty hot. And you can see the filament coming out here a little bit. So it should start here in a second. And there it goes. So hopefully we got our level pretty good, because here we go. Alright, so it is printing. So it looks like it's printing okay. That's always kind of nerve-wracking on the very first print. Right here you can see a little bit closer. Hopefully you can see. But it appeared to be that our level is pretty good because it's pretty even, or at least what I can tell. So we're just gonna let it print and see what happens. And here's everything on the screen. So we got 205 temperature, Okay, so I started with 215 on the first layer and 60 on the bed. Now the bed's going to 45 and the hot end went to 205. So the power supply over here, the fan's not even running on it yet. And I can feel it's barely warm, so it seems to be the power supply has no issue whatsoever, because it's definitely not as loud as the Ender 2 for sure. So we're about halfway done. So let's take a look at it, see what it looks like. And it's looking really, really good, guys. Check it out. I'm pretty impressed overall, honestly. We'll see how it comes out when it's done. Alright, and it's done. Look at that. So while this thing is hot, I'm going to go ahead and pull the filament out. So it took 1 hour and 15 minutes to print this. I can see there's a little bit of retraction problems because there's a little bit of string in between these two pieces, but other than that, it looks really good. I'm kind of excited to try out this magnetic mat here, so let's see how this works. I'm gonna peel it straight up. Oh wow, that was awesome. It just popped right off. So putting it back is not too hard as long as you land it in the right spot, I guess. But if you don't, it seems definitely wants to fight with you. So here I want to show you the bottom, and as you can see, our level was pretty darn good. Overall, it did a really good job, considering we just used the Ender 2 profile here to print this thing. And you can see, guys, on black really easily, you know, how everything looks. But honestly, I'm really impressed. This is so good. If I can tweak it just a little bit to make it a little better than this, it will be perfect. To me, this is already pretty darn awesome. So let's go to the back and see if this piece fits. Alright guys, so here we are at the back, and as you can see how close this lead screw is to that hole right there. That is crazy close. And the point of this little bracket here is to go right here. And not only that, it has a little clip here for the wire. So let's go ahead and take these little bolts out here. So I actually edited this little bracket here to work with this bolt for the Ender 2. And so it's specifically made to fit this thing in there. And so once I screw that in there, the filament will go through there. And that's it. Now we're just going to put our bolts through here. So yeah guys, this thing looks like it's a perfect fit. So now that we put the filament in, so the point of this is not to wear this piece out. And it's kind of a guide that, you know, brings it in really straight. And also as a bonus, we get a little wire holder here too. So now our wire can be held right there. Alright guys, and this is the Ender 3 Pro. So it looks like a very nice machine overall. It definitely does not have the plague of the wheels like my Ender 2 did. So everything is very tight. So I'm happy about that. I don't have to go and take them all apart and glue them, which I would have done before I assembled it. So that's awesome that it doesn't have that wheel problem. So I definitely love the bed size. So it's a 220 by 220. I think we could squeeze out a little more out of that. And I would say this is probably the most popular bed size on the market right now, because this is like the best, I guess, bang for your buck for the amount of area that you can print. So overall, I'm really happy that I got this thing. I definitely love the way it looks. It looks awesome. And the screen is pretty large here. The knob is easy to use. Everything seems nice. The magnetic bed is definitely pretty cool. Obviously, you probably can't heat it up much more than 60, but you know, for normal printing, this is just fine. The SD card here is easy to access. They go in upside down, and we have a little USB connection here. It's kind of weird that it does not have the bed leveling assistance here, but it's not a big deal. We just home it and then release the steppers and then level it from there. It just seems weird. Maybe I'm not understanding everything correctly, but that's the way I did it. I like how it does have an extra fan here to blow underneath the nozzle, so that's pretty cool. So maybe we won't have to do anything to this piece here. And I definitely love that it has a switch here for the on and off. And this power supply is so thin you can almost not see it. And this printer should also be able to recover from a power loss and start printing. So I think that'll be it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this unboxing and setup. I will have to say that this was a much easier build than the Ender 2. The Ender 2 seemed like a lot more pieces to put together and things like that. So overall, guys, I think this thing does live up to its hype. The price is great for what you get. The materials all seem to be pretty high quality. Alright guys, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. And if you want to get yourself an Ender 3 Pro or just a regular Ender 3, I'll leave some links in the description. And also guys, go check out my other videos. I got quite a few videos on 3D printing. So if you enjoy content like this and you're not subscribed, then hit that subscribe button. And as always guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.